Hello and welcome to History Afresh. In this episode, we bring to you a sad narrative. We bring to you the story of how a little girl of 6 years witnessed the gruesome assassination of her father, a brigadier in the Nigerian army, by a group of majors of the Nigerian army in January 1966, which marked Nigeria's first military coup. The name of the senior military officer was Brigadier Samuel Ademelugun. He was killed in his bedroom at his official residence in Kaduna. His only daughter, Sholape Ademelugun, was with him in the bedroom when the shots were fired at him. She saw her father collapse to the floor. This was too much trauma for a little girl, but guess what? Her pregnant mother, a London trained nurse, was also shot and killed by the soldiers in the same bedroom, same hour, same date. The assassins left the lifeless body on the floor in the pool of their blood and fled the scene, leaving little girl with a trauma that has been with her for decades. The first military coup in Nigeria saw to the assassination of the Prime Minister, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the Premier of the Northern Region, Sir Ahmadu Bello, and his wife, Asifatu, the Premier of the Western Region, Chief Ladoke Akintola, and a number of high-ranking military officials. One of the high-ranking military officials that was killed was Brigadier Samuel Ademelugun. It is important to note that these persons were killed at different locations on the same dates. In her bid to make the documentation of the events of that night for today and tomorrow, the daughter of the said brigadier has written a book with the title The Brigadier's Daughter. The book was published in 2021 by Capital Center Nigeria Limited. In this video, our mission is to make a summary of the events as reported in the book by the author. The book is made up of 7 short chapters. From page 13 of the book, the author narrates graphically as follows. In quotes, "My father had been out of Kaduna for days on official duty. He had been hinted about the possibility of a bloody coup and could have stayed back and not returned to Kaduna. But he was not one to run away from danger in the line of duty. That could have amounted to cowardice. He returned to his base in Kaduna that day as the cloud thickened with darkness." She continued, still in quotes, "My father's favorite meal was pounded yam and okra, or vegetable. The yam pounding mortar and pesto had a proud corner in our kitchen. He loved cow leg. I remember the tiny round bones that came out of the cow legs after he has finished eating. Born into a Christian family, my father attended the Anglican church and we did same with him, despite the fact that my mother was a Muslim." She went on to say, still in quotes, "December 14, 1965, I turned 6. My friends were invited to our Kaduna residence. We had a party. Little did I know what lay ahead 32 days thereafter. Saturday 15th, 1966. The day seemed like every normal day with the Harmattan air and cold wind. And the night time came. I had contracted chickenpox a few days earlier. So on the night, I slept on the same bed with my parents. That was in their bedroom. My face painted over with camelin lotion. I was fast asleep while my 4-year-old younger brother, the youngest of all 6 children my father had, was asleep in a neighbor cot in the same room. History records the time to be between 2 a.m. and 2:40 a.m. For me as a child, it was the dead of the night." She continued, still in quotes, "I was awakened by noise. I saw a multitude of soldiers. History lists 14 names of the soldiers that broke into my parents' bedroom. I saw a multitude of soldiers while recognizing the leader of the gang as Major Timothy Onwatuegwu, whom I called Uncle. Him and Major Nzogu being regular visitors to our home and at our dining table. I recall my first question was, 'Uncle, what are you doing here?' to which I got no response. At this time, my mother, who was pregnant, I have been told she was about 8 months pregnant, was on her feet. My father, who was in his white underpants and singlet, was also sitting on the bed. I heard my father talking to Onwatuegu. He asked, "Timothy, how did you get into my bedroom? And what the devil do you think you are doing?" This was an appropriate question, judging by the number of guards stationed outside the house. The guards, commanded by Lance Corporal Lawrence Akuma, had either been intimidated or bought over or shot for the men to have gained access. The guards were drawn from the 3rd Infantry Battalion of the Nigerian Army. I have been told that my father was the most protected personality in the northern region of Nigeria at the time, being the commander of the 1st Brigade of the Nigerian Army. The author went on to say at page 18, still in quotes, "I was up watching. Perhaps it would not have made sense to a 6-year-old, but the picture of the events of that night had been locked in my heart for over 50 years, fresh and indelible. I sat up and watched the entire event unfold. I was a spectator at the death of my parents. My older brother Bankole, who was 13 years old at the time, was home on holidays from school. He was in the room across the landing upstairs. As soon as he saw the soldiers with their guns, he ran right back into his room for safety." The brigadier's daughter continued in quotes at page 18. "My mother probably looked at Onwatuegu as the major that he was, a junior officer, a supposed friend of the family who usually came to eat. Ignoring the danger staring at her, my mother got up and planted herself boldly in front of her husband. Or perhaps she felt that the fact she was pregnant would make a difference and bring out the humane side of Major Onwatuegu and his men, but it did not. My father opened his bedside drawer in an attempt to bring out his service pistol against the long guns by 14 soldiers, all pointing at him. He was not ready to give up without a fight or die like a coward. He would rather fight and die gallantly than degrade the honor of his office by surrendering to subordinates. I understand that my father was the most protected personality in the whole of northern region of Nigeria, my father being the commander of the 1st Brigade of the Nigerian Army. As he made for his service pistol in the drawer, Major Onwatuegu and his men ran bullets into my mother, who was still standing between the soldiers and my father. The bullet went through her. My mother slumped and began to gasp for air, also attempting to talk in pain. A conversation ensued between Onwatuegu and my father. My father was marched out of the bedroom for a couple of minutes and let back. On getting in, he was shot. The brigadier's daughter went on to say at page 20 of her book, still in quotes, "We were there in the same room. It was like a film show. Blood all over. Blood on the floor, streaming on the walls. My mother did not die instantly. She kept calling my brother Kole and our maid Bele, perhaps to tell them what to do with us. But her voice was incoherent as life had slowly left her. Neither my brother nor our maid Bele could come near her body at the time. After what seemed like hours, the soldiers left, leaving 2 lifeless bodies behind." She continued at page 21, still in quotes, "By morning, the news had traveled all over. The death of the brigadier and his pregnant wife. My brother Kole had come into the room to move our younger brother and I to the boys' quarter. My father's orderly, whom we knew as Babadogo, was at the boys' quarters that morning. Everything seemed quiet as we sat there waiting to wake up from the bad dream. That same morning, the army sent personnel to pack up their bodies in preparation for burial. Both their bodies were packed and taken away in an army Land Rover. We watched the Land Rover take off at a distance from the boys' quarters." End of quote. This is a sad story of the brigadier's daughter, a 6-year-old Nigerian child, Sholape Ademelugun, who was present at her father's bedroom when her father, a brigadier in the Nigerian army, was shot and killed, along with his wife, Latifa Ademelugun, a London trained nurse who was heavily pregnant at the time she was killed by soldiers of the Nigerian army in the early hours of 15 January 1966. It was tragic and shocking to many. It was unbelievable, but it happened. There was nightfall in the family of late Brigadier, and life was never going to be the same again. It was an action taken by a group of young military majors in conjunction with others, with a view to taking over the reins of leadership in Nigeria. Some reports say that Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogu was the leader of the plot, while other reports say that the leader was Major Emmanuel Ifajina. They recruited other majors and gave them separate assignments on who to kill. The majors and others in the lower ranks worked in concert to eliminate the persons that were penciled for elimination. It was the first ever military coup in Nigeria, and the result was beyond description. The account of Brigadier Ademelugun's daughter is a sad reminder of the event of January 15, 1966, as noted by the Brigadier's daughter. She may not remember exactly everything that happened around her at the age of 6, but the event of January 15, 1966 remains etched in her memory forever. At the time of making this video, the Brigadier's daughter is 65 years old. Having been born in 1959, she has 2 daughters. The Brigadier's daughter went on with her narrative, and at page 21, she gave another sad version of the story. She noted thoughts in quotes. We were told that our parents were buried at the military burial ground in Kaduna. Sadly, the burial ground has now become part of an express road in Kaduna. We never knew their burial ground and never got the opportunity of visiting their burial spot to place flowers. As of today, the burial spot no longer exists. End of quote. One would have thought that following the decision to construct an express road across such a historic cemetery, such as the one that the Ademeluguns were buried, the remains of such persons ought to have been first exhumed and relocated to another burial site, preferably in the place of origin of the late Brigadier, or in a military cemetery in his place of origin, or anywhere else in Nigeria. Ademelugun was from Ondo State in the southwestern region of Nigeria. He was number 3 in the Nigerian army, while Brigadier Wellington Brassi of present-day Akwa Ibom State was number 1. Agu Ironsi, who was from Abia State, was number 2. It is our view that the man whose name is written as number 3 in the history books of Nigerian army deserves more than a grave without identification on the express road. It should, however, be noted that according to the Brigadier's daughter, the Nigerian army took full responsibility for the education of the children of the deceased Brigadier up to the university level. We commend the military for this humane gesture. It is our prayer that the Almighty Creator will accept the souls of Brigadier Samuel Ademelugun and that of his wife Latifa Ademelugun, even as we pray for healing and closure for the children and other members of the family. Thanks for watching this edition of History Afresh. Do remember to subscribe to this channel and follow our page for regular notifications on every new video. God bless you and bye for now.